I'm Ashley Wagasback, feeding therapist, occupational therapist, and lactation consultant. Look forward to discussing all things feeding so that we can support you to bring your little one to their maximum potential so that feeding can be enjoyable for the entire family.
Are you looking for a community of other moms joining together to support their little one through the ups and downs of feeding and gross motor milestones? The Thriving Together community is just for you. Find us on social media at Instagram, Facebook, and www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com to learn more. We look forward to seeing you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Feeding Solutions Podcast. I'm super thankful to have this mama, Chelsea Dowden, on for a parent testimony. She and I have worked together for 3 of her boys and their feeding journeys. She graduated from Nichols Nursing in 2012. She's married and she has 4 children with her husband. She has been a nurse at Terrebonne General for 13 years in neonatal mother baby unit, pediatrics, and women's services. And she's also a certified maternal newborn nurse and has her CLC, both which she has had since 2014. So thank you so much for coming on. I knew when we met for our first visit for your third, I was like, I mean, I said at the first visit, I normally don't ever do that, but I was like, I think you would be amazing to have one to share because you came in with like this confidence and this calm that I don't always see with moms who this is their first baby that they're struggling with feeding. Everything is so new. So I think that you can be a great resource for people. So thank you
Oh, you're
so
welcome.
much. Thank you. So again, like just a little bit about yourself, your family, like you kind of who you are and like your whole like approach to mothering and breastfeeding and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, so I'm from Homa, born and raised here. I went to elementary school here, high school, college, and I stayed in this area, obviously in nursing. I've only done babies and mamas and women's services throughout my whole career. It's got my heart. It's always been what I wanted to do, going through nursing school. So I was very blessed to land a job, my first job in that field. Um, when I first started nursing, the culture down here wasn't really into breastfeeding. It definitely was, more formula and bottle feeding, which is totally fine. But it wasn't on the bandwagon of breast milk and the benefits of breast milk and breastfeeding and stuff like that. So I feel like I've kind of grown with the culture also in
Mm-hmm.
terms of my profession as well. And so in learning all of that, it's tugged at my heart on learning everything I can, not only to help my own kids, but to help everyone that I help in my profession as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's so great. That's so great.
mhm.
So, like your experience with being lactation trained and aware, how has that impacted your own feeding journey with your children?
So it's definitely guided me for sure. For my first baby, I didn't know anything in regards
Mm-hmm.
to breastfeeding. And so I wasn't super successful with latching her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wound up exclusively pumping and feeding breast milk for that first year. Because that's always my goal. Everybody's got a different goal, but that is
Yeah,
my goal. And so I feel like knowing what I know now, if if I could go back, there's so many things I would change
sure.
with that first experience of breastfeeding with my first baby because, you go back in hindsight is, hello, I should have did it this way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it has guided each child is different when in regards to breastfeeding journey. My second baby was so smooth, minus like a posterior tongue tie that we had to fix, but way later. Then my third, experience with breastfeeding, it was right away. I had to fix it. And obviously, my fourth one was like super right away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just given me knowledge to know what to look for with each breastfeeding experience, and knowing the resources that I have and that I can go and get the help that I need to have the breastfeeding journey and feeding journey with my children that I want to experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So coming from, the second baby who you sought intervention
mhm.
for compared to like the third baby, and just like explain kind of like your mindset and like where your head was that you were, able to act upon.
Yes. So with my second baby, obviously it was all new to me. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know anything about feeding therapy or
Mm-hmm.
um, posterior tongue ties, or like the effect of posterior tongue ties, or just tongue ties and lip ties in general. You
Mm-hmm.
study them and you see them, but like you don't, past a
Yeah.
couple of days, I don't see you anymore, so I don't know what goes on past that. So being that person and having to experience it, it's very unknowing. You don't
Yeah.
know what to expect. You don't know what to do. You don't know the resources you need to go to or have. And I can say the playing field of resources is way different from my second baby to my
Yeah.
fourth baby. We've
Yeah.
gotten so good at being able to treat these babies and have therapy for these babies and
Mm-hmm.
have education for moms
Mm-hmm.
to seek out all of this, and compared to in
Yeah.
2019, so which was when my
Absolutely.
second baby was born. So all of that has helped me grow with each baby,
Mm-hmm.
learning from 2019 to now 2025. Each experience is different, but you just from that first one, you gain an understanding for everything, and it just builds upon for when there's a new challenge with the next kid
Mm-hmm.
or the next kid, or
Mm-hmm.
not only for yourself, but so that you can help someone else,
Absolutely.
guide them towards the therapies or resources that they need.
Yeah, yeah. Can you explain a little bit of like how each of your children presented, because they're
Yeah,
all different, but like what
they
did
are.
baby number two versus three, number four?
So with my second baby, I was probably 2 months into my postpartum journey. And I started getting a bleb on
Mhm.
one side on my right breast. Bleb is for anybody who doesn't know it, is a little like collection of milk right at the end of your nipple, where almost like it's just kind of blocked and it doesn't come out, and it's thick, and it's hard to kind of extract. Anyway, he was causing that on just one breast. And so I thought that to be kind of odd, um, 2 months in. So I had
Mhm.
contacted one of the local hospitals, and asked to be seen by lactation. And
Mhm.
so they did. We did all kinds of, things, different positions, stuff like that. And they noticed that the tongue more towards the back, it was just quite tight. And so that's
Mhm.
kind of, the tongue wasn't able to get all
Mhm.
of the breast. And so that's what was causing the bleb, because he wasn't taking as much of the milk during the feeding. So at the time, we didn't have anybody around here that
Mhm.
did the laser. That's what
Mhm.
we chose to do, was the laser instead of just the clipping,
Mhm.
that they do at some ENT offices. So we did the laser with someone, not from
A
around here,
dentist. Mhm.
from a dentist, and um, did that. We followed up with you, because you have to
Mhm.
continue to do, feeding therapy to make sure the tongue knows what it needs to do after.
Mhm.
So that one was fine. My second, my second feeding therapy, but my third baby, um, we started feeding. We were fine. Thought everything was going well. Within maybe 2 weeks, he kind of just quit eating, like breastfeeding on me. And so I knew something was wrong. So we did feeding therapy, same
Mhm.
thing. Realized that there was an anterior tongue and a
Mhm.
lip, went to the same people. And then for my third one, I knew the first latch, the very first latch after delivery, we were tight and I could see the lip, the tongue, the cheeks. He had the whole 9 yards.
Mhm.
And I knew instantaneously when we first latched because it was way more painful. The other ones weren't painful latches. They just presented with like the bleb and the
Mhm.
not feeding after a while, but this one was just straight up painful.
Mhm.
So I knew something was not right with his
Mhm.
latch for sure. So
So anybody had slow weight gain, or if weight gain was pretty good for your babies?
weight gain was good for all of them except my third one, which is the one that quit
Mhm.
eating.
Mhm.
And so I do feel like because he kind of showed that he was eating, I kind of, looking back on it now, there's a few things I noticed that he wouldn't eat very long, and I should have
Mhm.
either pumped after or something to keep my supply
Mhm.
up because my supply was a little different for him. I had to work a little
Mhm.
bit harder to keep my
Mhm.
supply up for him and keep him with enough milk to feed. I could tell his
Mhm.
weight gain was a little less than my other two for sure that had this done.
Did you get any pushback from pediatrician or like family members who maybe were questioning your decision to move forward with either feeding therapy, like what are you doing with that, or even like talking about a tongue tie release?
I did not, but I do know it is a very common thing
Mhm.
to get pushback. Like I said, when I first started this, the culture was not breastfeeding friendly.
Mhm.
Um, you know, a lot of mamas and papas want to help feed the baby and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And so
Mhm.
they don't know as much about breastfeeding. And
Mhm.
so I did not get any pushback because I had family members that all breastfed their
Mhm.
kiddos. And
Mhm.
I had a really good village,
Mhm. Mhm.
behind me, and they knew it was something I really wanted to do, and it was something I was really passionate about. So I had great help, and I had great friends and people and professionals guide me towards what I needed to
Mhm.
do. But I do
Mhm.
know that it's
It's
a
not
thing.
uncommon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it's not
thing for
uncommon.
sure. And so I like to tell people find your village
Yeah.
kind of ahead of time on,
Mhm.
find your if breastfeeding is super important to you, you need to find your village and your resources and your Facebook groups and all these
Absolutely.
things that um, can help you when you have people who are a little anti-breastfeeding or
Yeah,
not
or just not
understanding,
standing.
yeah, not understanding how important it is to you and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, and I think you like your journey with your babies is just a good example of that it's gonna look different
it
from one
is.
child to the other, and that even though your baby may be gaining weight, which is often like the marker that your pediatrician
Mhm.
is monitoring things, that doesn't mean that there's not a reason that you might need additional support. And I think that I say that because I think a lot of mamas are like, I'm making this out to be a bigger thing.
Mhm.
Like they're gaining weight. Like, why would I want to go and do something aggressive, or
Mhm.
even like waste our time and money on feeding therapy when they're gaining weight? So I guess from like the things that you learned in like the whole feeding therapy process, like what would you say was maybe something that you feel like other parents could benefit from hearing?
So, yes, even though they are gaining weight, you kind of have to look at other things too. Like, are they super fussy? Are they eating every hour? Or can they go with anybody else without being attached to you like Velcro? Um,
Mm-hmm.
because there's times where only mom will do, and it's okay, it's fine, but like as the mom sometimes you need like to come up for air, you need to
Absolutely.
have like 10 minutes where you don't have the baby on you, breastfeeding on you, where your nipples feel like you're about to fall off. I mean, breastfeeding is a
Mm-hmm.
it's not always easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's some difficult things. There's physical changes to mom, there's emotional changes to mom. there's emotional changes to the family unit in
Yeah.
general, especially if mom's always the one doing all the things and now they're tied down, feeding this baby and not being able to move around as much to help with other kids and stuff like that. So you just, it's all different. You have to find what works for you. But with my second one, which was my first feeding therapy baby, it was nothing. Like, we did what we needed to do and fine. With my third one, it was a little more difficult to try and like get back on track. And he is my one with the weight loss and stuff like that. And so it once we did it, like the release and the therapy and all, he didn't have to be on me as much. He didn't have to, he could go with other people without screaming bloody murder and then me feeling absolutely guilty that he's away from me. And then by the third one, it was, oh my gosh, it was just such night and day. He was literally breastfeeding every hour because everything was so tight. He wasn't taking as much in. So yes, it affected my milk supply because I had a bigger milk supply once we did all of this. Even though they were gaining weight and following the curve, because ultimately it's about following the curve. But my milk supply was increased, which increased my amount of protein, which increased the amount he was getting in order to not eat on me every hour, every 2 hours. Like, now we can go 3 hours, and at night now thank Jesus, we're like every 6 and 7 hours. But you see what I'm saying? Like, doing all of that has helped, even though he was gaining weight, and even though most of them were gaining weight the whole time. It just was affecting really me more than anybody. And so it helped me with all the things, my milk supply, my emotions. I didn't feel drained all the time. So, it's worth it, even if you can't see the result or the purpose of it right away.
Right, right. So, okay, so you just made the comment that you're like, it really helped me, like it helped you a lot. Absolutely, your baby was not as fussy, clingy, so it helped the both of you.
It did.
So like a question that I know you and I both see in the world of like when we're talking about if a potential tongue tie release is needed, is it like painful? So like between your three that went through tongue tie releases, what was their demeanor like after? But was
Uh,
it did they seem like extremely uncomfortable? Were they not, did they feed after the release? Like those concerns are very real for parents.
so with every release, you go in, they explain the procedure, they do it. It takes maybe 2 minutes at the most. They bring the baby back to you and you feed right away. The first two fed very well and fine, a little fussy. The last one, he he was a little more fussy, I find, than the other two, right after the release. But after that first like day, it was fine. Like, it didn't affect anything. I guess is what I'm trying to
Right.
say. No differently than it was the day before. We might have been a little more fussy just because obviously the stretching that you have to do with it, and stuff like that. But we were able to latch. My first two were able to latch and continue feeding like without missing a beat. My last one, we had to work on him a little bit just because everything was so tight.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we opened everything up. He was just kind of not really
Right. A little bit, he was a little bit more
yeah,
disorganized.
he
Yeah.
was. He was a little bit more disorganized. So like he didn't, like, we'd eat and then he'd come off and then we'd have to, supplement with my breast milk after to satisfy him. But the persistence of doing it every day, every day, every day, every day. And now it's like nothing. Like, I can just pop him one and not have to make sure we're at the right position, at the right spot, doing this so that it didn't hurt me at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's you can tell they have discomfort after the release. Probably for that first day they are a little bit more clingier and want to
Mm-hmm.
be held with you and stuff like that, but the subsequent days, the real only fussiness they have is when you're stretching them right before a
Right.
feed, and normally once they're fed they're content after.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I mean, were you overwhelmed with the stretches? Was that something that really?
probably for my first baby, I was, because
Mm-hmm.
it was my first time doing it. I wanted to get it right. I didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
mess up, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really nothing after your
Mm-hmm.
third one. You're just like, oh yeah, this is easy. Count to five, all the things. Um,
Yeah.
and it tears your mama heart out, just listening more than it really does hurt them. So, and probably
Yeah.
by the second or third day, they didn't fuss as much
Yeah.
at all.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times the mama is the one that's struggling
yeah,
more.
yeah, because you're like, oh my God, my baby's crying and I'm doing this to them.
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's very normal, but that's why we want to make sure that we're doing some work pre-release,
Yeah.
if that's the direction we're heading, and post, to make sure that the mama feels very safe, secure, and supported, so that she feels prepared. Because again, there's lots of moving parts and a lot of new things happening. And so we want that to not be overwhelming as well. So what would you say are like some valuable tips that moms could benefit from knowing, just because you've been there, done that
So
multiple times?
this just kind of not only just for like a lip and tie release, this is
Hmm.
kind of just in general, like just educate yourself, like do your own research, find your village, find your Facebook group or your friends or your family members that have breastfed before.
Hmm.
Most hospitals put on like a breastfeeding
Hmm.
class for
Hmm.
nothing. There's plenty of social media accounts that you know have
Yep.
people who input back and forth,
Hmm.
and then they'll let you know where your resources are in your community, like who you have close to you, so that you're not having, for us, like you're not having to drive to Baton Rouge or New Orleans or
Hmm.
all these places like that. What we have physically here with us, in Homa Thibodeau area,
Yep.
is really nice to have. So that's kind of like two of them: educate yourself,
Yeah.
find your village, um,
Hmm.
and just learn to be flexible with yourself. Like as a
Hmm.
mom, you're trying to get it perfect, you're trying to be perfect, as this has to be perfect for my baby. This is kind of really for first time moms. Learn to be flexible. Your birth plan is not going to go how you want it. Your baby feeding is not going to go how you want it. The way you feel sometimes doesn't go how you want it. Not everybody
Hmm.
has the greatest experience. Some people have postpartum depression and stuff like that, and so just learn to overcome and adapt
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
any problem that you come up with, whether it be feeding or your amount of breast milk, your feelings, you and your partner's feelings, stuff like that. It's just
Hmm.
things that you educate yourself on, things that you learn to, like I said, just be flexible with.
Hmm.
That way you can fix it, and you can move on to the next chapter of your baby's life.
Right, exactly, exactly. What's some lessons you've learned through all of this that might have stung, that you're like, man?
Like for me, it's not asking for help. That's like
Mm,
my number one thing. Like, hey, I can do this. Like, perfectionism, it
yeah.
runs deep inside of me. So, um, you know, learning to ask for help and just being vulnerable to it, and
Hmm.
having people who have done this before, or who have or are the professionals that, even that I work with, tell me like,
Hmm.
hey girl, like we need to fix this, and just breaking down that wall to accept the help,
Hmm.
um and stuff like that is something, was my
Absolutely.
number one really big
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
thing. So then yeah, that's a
I think
big
that
thing for
I
me.
think it encompasses a lot.
It
Yeah. I
does, it
mean,
kind of does all the
it
things.
does. It really
But
does. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like it's a short-lived time, and
it is.
particularly if you are struggling with feedings, then like, and if that's your priority to get your baby, to get them fed and get them on the breast, or whatever your goal is, then that's going to consume most of your time during the
Mhm.
day.
Oh,
So
yes.
you may just, everyone around you is looking for a way to help. And so
Absolutely. Absolutely, they are.
if you can relinquish some of that control and just ask for help, everyone is happier for it, for
Yes.
sure, for sure. Do you have
Yes.
any other pieces of advice that you would give to moms that maybe,
Um,
like what about somebody who's just like, I think that my baby could benefit from this, but like what's something you would tell them?
I hear that a lot. For example, with like chiropractor care.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, you think of chiropractor care of adjusting, you think of adults really like they're adjusting you and everything's cracking and popping and pulling and
Mm-hmm.
nobody realizes the benefit that it can do for your babies,
Mm-hmm.
especially in regards to feeding.
Mm-hmm.
To me, feeding
Absolutely.
therapy and chiropractic care kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Your babies are inside of you for 9 months, all squished and scrunched and, tilted and all these things. And coming out and being able to release all that tension helps later on with
Absolutely.
feeding, with
It
positioning of
does.
your baby while breastfeeding, with learning to open all of this up.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, to me, they go hand in hand. You have to think about it like if you're hurting or say your neck's hurting and you can't turn this way, but you have to turn this way to do something for your job or blah, 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 you're going to go seek help and seek therapy to be able to
Mm-hmm.
do it. The same thing happens for babies. They just can't
Mm-hmm.
physically speak it to us. And
Right.
so, say you have a baby that's just screaming, crying 24/7, and they'll label it colic.
Mm-hmm.
There's something more going on there, and you need to
Mm-hmm.
go and get it checked out, not just by your pediatrician, but by,
Mm-hmm.
therapists who do this 24/7
Mm-hmm.
that see a result
Mm-hmm.
and can really help you out, you
Mm-hmm.
know, not just medically. There's great therapies out there that can do so much more for you than and for your baby than you realize.
And in a very short amount of
Oh,
time.
absolutely. In a very, very short amount of time.
In
Like,
the grand scheme, yeah.
yes, like, we've changed for all three of my babies, we've changed our feeding, experience within 2 to 3 months. Like, and I know it
Mm-hmm.
feels like big, but like when you're in the nitty gritty of it,
Yeah.
it's nothing. It's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just keep seeing each week you have make little small goals for yourself. And,
Mm-hmm.
especially like with this last baby, it was, okay, I'm going to be able to latch once a day without him ripping my nipple off.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
each week was a new goal, and now we're feeding like it's nothing. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
just we've crossed to the next chapter, and that's just a chapter in the past. So,
Yes.
it's so much quicker than what people think without me having to like medically do all kinds of things. You know what I
Right.
mean? Just
Absolutely.
go least invasive to most invasive is what, we practice in
Absolutely.
medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've experienced that with all three of them in regards to my feedings. So,
That's
or my feeding
wonderful.
journey.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And again, like you're not one among many that has had, well, you are one among many who has had this similar experience. So
Mhm.
it's not like you're like, oh, she's the small percentage of
Yeah,
families that see these results. We see this over and over.
all the
And
time.
as you were saying, like how things have shifted from your second baby who had a
Mhm.
feeding journey, I feel like the providers are more confident because we've
They
been doing it
are.
longer and we're tightening up on the way that we're providing services. So we're more confident in like the way that we're implementing services, and we're seeing a tremendous result because of that. And so it's
Absolutely.
like we're doing things as efficiently as possible, which is exciting because obviously from like preserving milk supply and
Yeah.
baby being happy and the family just being in
Being able
the
to
best.
blossom. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's amazing. So yes, this has been wonderful. I'm so grateful that you would share your experience.
Absolutely.
Again, like I feel like we touched on lots of things that come up and maybe could be blocks and barriers to getting the right help in the right amount of time.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be beautiful for families to hear, and I appreciate you coming on
Oh,
today.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad I could be of assistance.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We'll see each other soon.
Yep.
I hope you found this episode on the feeding solutions helpful. If you would like more information, please follow Sensory Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or you can always visit our website at www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com. Thanks so much for joining today, and look forward to seeing you next time.